The CGA Tour, a podcast unlike any other. Now your host, Calvin Alexander.
Welcome back to another episode of the CGA Tour podcast. As always, here I'm your host, Calvin Glen Alexander. And tonight's episode, joined by Alexi Bollwerk himself, fellow Oklahoma State alum. Talk a little college football, Oklahoma State-wise, see what we're up to in the offseason, and then talk some MLB with Oklahoma State players involved. Kind of the crossover here, and get a little catch-up here on how Andrew Heaney, Oklahoma State players overall, Christian Encarnacion Strand, as well for the Reds, and others as well, too. You know, Alexi, one player I haven't heard a lot of is, do you remember, like, Griffin Dorsher? I believe he was drafted by the Padres organization. I'm going to have to look him up here. But with all that being said, how you doing? How's it going?
Doing well, Calvin. Thanks for having me on. Excited to talk some sports, OSU football, Major League Baseball, whatever you want to throw at me and discuss. I'm ready for it.
Wonderful. All right. Well, yeah, it is Griffin Dorsher. He's currently a high A affiliate for the Fort Wayne Tin Caps, which are the Padres organization here. And 2024, he's had 120 at bats so far, and
wow,
for the Fort Wayne Tin Caps. So it's in the Padres organization, and he was drafted in the I think 8th round overall, pick 240 out of Oklahoma State University, first baseman. So with that being said, what have you thought about this Oklahoma State offseason of football so far? Really just want to kind of open it up here, get your kind of thoughts. I mean, I know there's the schedule preview, all the good type of stuff we'll get into later on during this offseason, especially as we get closer to August. But for right now, looks like we got a tough schedule. We line up, we play K-State and then Utah back-to-back. I think it's Utah first, then K-State. We also have to go to Colorado in the snow, I would assume, in November for the last game of the season. Which, I don't know, what are your thoughts on Dion, kind of the whole season here for Oklahoma State? Is this Big 12 championship or bust? Let me put it to you that way.
I mean, I feel like we talked about this. I don't remember when exactly it was. It might have been like a end of the season or kind of the middle of the offseason kind of podcast. But yeah, I think not getting to the Big 12 championship with the talent that we brought back and the experience, I think it would be a disappointment. I really do. Now, a lot of things can happen. We all know injuries are a thing. Unfortunate situations happen throughout a season. But if everything can go well in terms of staying healthy for the most part, yes, I do think not getting to the Big 12 championship would be a very big disappointment. I mean, when you bring back a guy like Ollie Gordon, you bring back Presley out there at the wideout, and then, of course, Alum Bowman, who I'm not particularly high on, but I think he is your best option going into 2024. I think when you bring those three guys back, as well as that offensive line, there's a lot of good talent there. Yes, the schedule might be tough, but OSU's done it before where they've had tough schedules and have gotten to the Big 12 championship. So this is a big season for them. I think, especially with the version of the new Big 12 and what's to come. This is like I've been saying this to you, to my other friends. This is OSU's conference to run, and it all starts in 2024. They got to put their foot on the gas and start right now. And if they don't do it, it's going to be very disappointing, in my opinion.
Yeah, I got to say, really there's a lot of, okay, we should be doing this, we should be doing that, but we should definitely be running the Big 12. I don't see another team in the Big 12 that is just every single year going to be the best team in the Big 12. There's not like an incumbent where we go in and we go, okay, now all of a sudden we're worried about, the famous Texas and OU every single year, and really wasn't Texas until this past season. It was just OU. So with that being said, I really think it's Oklahoma State's conference to lose / to lose the championship game. I don't want to get too, brain in the clouds. Something could happen, because I do agree with you. I think Alan Bowman has his limits. There's a reason why he didn't win the starting job straight out of camp last year. It could have been rust. It could have been skill. It could have been unproven, kind of stats. But there's a reason why he's able to transfer to Oklahoma State, not to Alabama, or for that matter, to an SEC school or wherever. We're not the greatest things on sliced bread. There's another possibility that Oklahoma State could have great quarterbacks on the roster and be the team to hey, all of a sudden we've got Alan Bowman. He's incredible. He's a Heisman Trophy candidate, etc. But I think we all know that that's Ollie Gordon. We're running it back with a 1-2 punch of him, and then the transfer that's 240 pounds out of Indiana, who's a behemoth of a guy. I mean, he runs through guys. He's basically a modern-day fullback, and that 1-2 punch should really be able to put it to guys where, yes, we do have wide receivers. Yes, we can throw the ball down the field. We can have guys run under the ball on deep routes, but we're not doing that every day. That is not the Oklahoma State football way, just first and foremost anymore. I'm curious here. Do you think would you think that K-State or Utah is the other team if you had to pick, or go off the board here? Another team is the other team that plays Oklahoma State here in the Big 12 Championship, or just as another second best team or first best team in the conference?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Calvin. And I've gone back and forth with this, and the one that keeps me away from wanting to bet to take Utah as that other team. And I mean, they're going to have the talent. They're bringing back Rising as their quarterback. He's coming back for his seventh year, basically. He's been there, it feels like forever. But yeah, I mean, I always worry about teams going to a new conference, not just because of who they are, but it's a lot of change. And I know we saw it with Houston, so you can kind of take that out but it is basketball. Basketball might be different than football, but still you're playing a lot of new teams, and Utah is going to be playing a lot of new Big 12 teams every single year. Every single game is going to be a new environment on the road for the most part. And so that does give me a little bit concerned about Utah is how do they adjust? Is it going to be an easy adjustment for them? Maybe it is. Maybe it is something like what it was for Houston in basketball, where they played these Big 12 teams that had no problems for the most part. But in football, I think it could be a little different. So if I had to say another team that was to be on my radar that could give OSU the biggest problems at winning the Big 12, I would definitely say K-State. I just think there's a lot of talent there. They're very well coached, and the quarterback coming in for them is supposed to be really good, which could lead them to big places. So yeah, I think K-State would be my team outside of Oklahoma State to give them problems. To me, it's Oklahoma State and K-State, and then right behind them is Utah would be my top three teams.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I could see Iowa State being kind of a dark horse. The fact that Colorado, and I keep mentioning this, just has a Heisman Trophy caliber quarterback and also Heisman Trophy caliber, I guess, wide receiver / DB on the roster just makes me a little nervous about Colorado, but not really. They were 4-8 last year against the Pac-12. I don't think Colorado is going to come in out of nowhere and just do anything of relevancy in the conference. But if they get 2 more wins than they got last year, and they go to a bowl game, that's success. I mean, that is much better than they were doing 2 years ago before they got Deion. So there's a possibility that Colorado is halfway decent, really muck something up for some team, And if I change that M to an F, that's really could be Colorado's standpoint in the Big 12 of how in the world does Deion Sanders get on national TV and really get maybe the Dallas Cowboys want to get him in the building, and maybe they draft his son and they just do some random stuff, some really outrageous, Twitter or X or whatever takes start coming off the wall here. And I can definitely see something like that happening. When you're thinking about the football season and you're forecasting it, what does a perfect Oklahoma State season look like for you? Is this just hey, you know what? It's an Ollie Gordon team. He's running the ball. Or do you think that, hey, we need to get back to kind of the air raid type of deal, really just pass it down the field? Because now everyone knows we've got Ollie Gordon. He's, for Football Focus, is number 1 overall running back in the nation.
Yeah, what I miss is that high-powering, fun, dominant type of offense. And we've been away from that for a couple of years, it feels like now, especially last year. It just was very reliant on Ollie Gordon. So that'll be really interesting to see how teams game plan approach for Ollie Gordon. Are they going to just kind of stack it in and make us throw with Bowman? They might. I mean, that would be probably the easiest way to keep Ollie Gordon from breaking off and having 200 rushing yards a game against you. But Yeah, I think we just need to get back to that, fun offense and, do a mix and match. You can still run the ball with Gordon, obviously, but you got to be able to have that high explosive offense with a quarterback who can go deep and have that Big 12 style that we used to have in the past. And I think we can get there with it. It just has to be part of the structure that we have. And I don't know, just the play calling can be very head scratching at times. Like the first drive of the game, I've said this thousands of times, the first drive of the game, sometimes the best drive they've done all year. And then all of a sudden they go away from it. It's like a completely different play calls the rest of the game. I don't really understand that part, but get back to the explosive offense, high powering. We need to get back to that. Ollie Gordon will be Ollie Gordon no matter what happens, but we need to get back to that type of offense.
I totally agree on that point. We have to get back to, hey, we can get back in games offensively without having to run the ball, because our defense last year looked pretty darn good down the stretch. I mean, it was a defensive-ish team, but then we allow a lot of points to Houston in the first half, then we kind of shut them down. We allow points to West Virginia, then we kind of shut them down. Like we seem to pull out games where, hey, our running ability was able to take over and really just kind of beat up some guys in the line of scrimmage, be really physical. We are bringing back every offensive lineman that started last year is coming back. That's great. But at the same point, that South Alabama game just really seemed like there was just no chance because, okay, our offense hasn't done anything the whole game. And then by the end of the year, it was, hang on, this team's going to the Big 12 championship? Wait a second. What happened? How did that happen? And now it's one of those deals where I think you and I both probably didn't see that coming. And I didn't see us beating Texas in that Big 12 championship game either. That kind of showed how Jekyll and Hyde we could be. We could show up in that Big 12 championship game and at least stand a chance, or we could just completely fall flat like it was one of the first 3 games of the season where we barely squeak out wins against Arizona State and others, and then all of a sudden, wait a second, we're gonna lose to South Alabama at home? Really? This is disgusting and really terrible and hard to watch. So there's that Iowa State game where it's where I really feel like everything started to turn. And this year, we should just be hitting the ground running from the get-go. There should not be a question. And hopefully there is some opportunity for St. Flores and others on the roster to get some playing time because we're up so big in these first couple of games. Because South Dakota is just not that good. Because Arkansas is just not that good, or, and Tulsa, can't imagine they're going to be that great either. So, and that's going to be definitely an orange packed house there in Tulsa too. So that's almost a home game for Oklahoma State fans. I don't forecast this as a letdown season, but the expectations could not be higher for this Oklahoma State team. I mean, college football playoffs expands. Everyone's coming back. There's no reason why we shouldn't be playing great. Second year under the Brian Nardo scheme system of this 3-3-5 defensive system. What is there not to love about this Oklahoma State team coming back? And I'd really say that's kind of where we fall into a trap of a possible letdown. And knock on wood here a bunch over and over and over. Injuries could be the thing that takes us away from us, especially if Bowman or Ollie or an offensive line piece or two go down. But I think there's a lot of, hey, you know what? We're pretty good. So we'll see what happens here.
Yeah, I mean, when you have a year like last season where it started out pretty bad. We were 1-2 or whatever, 2-1, 1-2. I don't remember how it exactly started, but the loss to South Alabama was just bad. And then you kind of had that K-State game on Thursday night where they were like a 10-point underdog or something and just absolutely smashed them from start to finish. It was like a totally different Oklahoma State team that showed up that day. And we're like, where was this all year? And then all of a sudden the rest of the season was just good. I mean, for how bad it started, I think we all could have agreed. We were like, wow, we'll be lucky to win 6-7 games this year, and they ended up winning 10 games. And I think that speaks to what this team can be. And that's why there are such high expectations for this Oklahoma State team, because last year wasn't even, if you want to say it, yeah, they won 10 games. They got to the Big 12 championship game. That's a good season. But if you look at it from with a real eye, it wasn't like a great, incredible, we were just a dominant team. We didn't have that. So I think that's where we need to take that step this year and say, yeah, we weren't that team last year, but we still won 10 games, and that's how good we can be with expectations and what they're at right now. So I think that's pretty telling too. And hopefully we take that step.
Yeah, that'd be the hope for sure. Well, that being said here, I think everyone's going to love for us to get into the whole Big 12 offseason kind of schedule review. But for right now, MLB season just kicked off. All right, so just say first pitch was just thrown almost a month ago now, almost 2 months ago, actually, as we're coming up on it here. In Korea, weirdly enough, my Padres played no one's LA Dodgers. And because they're really just the arch nemesis of everyone, it seems now, because they have money to spend for whoever. Your Cardinals, I think, are playing tonight against the Orioles, if I saw that right. And so, lot to go over here. There's a quiz question I got for you here, and this is for the listeners as well, too. How many current Oklahoma State players are in Major League Baseball? Not in the minors, just Major League Baseball.
I'm pretty sure it's just 2.
Yep. It's just 2, or it is 2, and could not be lucky enough for it to be 2. I guess either way. We've got Christian Encarnacion Strand, who's on the 10-day IL, plays first and some third. Number 33 for your Cincinnati Reds. Not your, just whoever's Cincinnati Reds here.
Yeah.
He's on the 10-day IL. And then also, of course, Andrew Heaney, World Series champion Andrew Heaney from the Texas Rangers, reigning World Series champion. And he seems to be playing baseball. I don't really have the hottest stats on him either. But with that being said, do you think who do you think ends the season better? Rangers, Reds, who has a better chance to win their division? Are the Reds, maybe better question, are the Reds that out of it? Because, I mean, the Rangers are reigning champions of their division, I think, and, of course, the World Series, so I would assume they have the better chance, right?
Yeah, I think the Rangers are the better team. I think the Rangers probably come close to the division. I mean, right now they're 2 out and it's early. There's plenty of time. I think they'll battle it out for the division. I think they'll definitely be there for a playoff spot because they have an offense. Their pitching is a little hit by the injury bug right now. They've got some injuries on some of them. Max Scherzer's going to come back, possibly Jacob deGrom, depends on all that, but they are going to get healthier in the pitching department, which is what you need down the stretch. So I think as long as Texas kind of hovers around 500, doesn't go in a terrible slump, they'll be right there back in the playoffs. I think the Reds are just, I don't think they have the type of team to get there this year. They're currently last place in the National League Central. That's 8 games back from first, 19-28. I will say they have one of the most exciting players in baseball, Ellie De La Cruz, but that's not going to cut it. They just don't have the pitching, and the offense is just very stale. So I think the Rangers, if I had to take a team right there between those two, would have the better chance of making the playoffs and doing it and making a run.
Gotcha. And just so everyone knows, Encarnacion Strand did fracture his wrist. So looks like he's currently on the 10-day IL, but this was put out on May 8th. He's yet to appear back in a game since then. And it looks like he was just hit, a ball hit him in the wrist. And then he played a little bit. And then he just been on the IL since then for quite some time. So, you know what? We'll see what happens with him coming back here. I know we're big Oklahoma State fans first and foremost here, especially on this podcast. I love that an Oklahoma State player and Andrew Heaney gets a World Series ring, but he's 0-5 so far on the season for the Texas Rangers. So he's not putting up the greatest stats in the entire world, but like you said, he's not getting a lot of support, from the rest of the pitching staff. They've got other guys coming in, and I do see him kind of at this point in his career. He's been in the league 10 years. He's a pitcher. Those guys can last forever if they're really high value. That's not necessarily been hing dog. So love to see him get back to that. But at this point, I really think he's much more of a guy who, if you're older than me and you're playing Major League Baseball, props to you. Because baseball is the sport you can last the longest in, dependably, I'd say, out of all the Major League sports. But he was born in 91. Injuries and other stuff has been a factor for him overall. So, he's got to get a win back, but he's currently doing better ERA wise than his career. So, he's all right. It's fine. It's the Rangers. We'll see how they shake out. With that being said here, also, of course, I know you're a huge MLB fan. I, of course, am a big Padres fan. The rest of the MLB, I honestly do not follow really at all. But with that being said, I'm just trying to humor everyone. Who do you see coming out of the NL West here if it's not the Dodgers? Keyword, if it's not. Because I know right now it's the Dodgers are a bust of kind of winning the whole World Series, I would say, right? I mean, they've got Ohtani, they've got name every single player, it seems like. I just turn my head around and I go, wait, they've got that guy too, and they've got that guy, and the Dodgers seem to be just an embarrassment of riches. So it's not the Dodgers. Who's winning the NL West?
Yeah, if it's not the Dodgers, I got to say, if there's any team that can come close to them, it's the Padres. It really is. I mean, they went out there and got Dylan Cease. Great addition to add to the starting rotation. They just went out there and made a trade deadline type move in May for Luis Ariz. He's the modern day version of Tony Gwynn. If you don't know who he is, this guy does not strike out, gets on base at a crazy amount or at a super high rate. And he just hits the ball. He puts the ball in play. And that's what you don't really see in this day of baseball is these guys really strike out a lot. They're just kind of hitting for power, trying to get out. They're not really trying to get on base. They're really just going for the home run or nothing. And that's where you see a lot of strikeout percentages high for these players. But Luis Ariz, just a totally different player. If you look at like a side-by-side of him and Tony Gwynn in their first, I don't know the exact amount of games, but let's just say 500 games, their numbers are very identical. It's crazy. So I'm not saying he's Tony Gwynn by any means, but if there's anyone close to it, it's Luis Ariz. The guy is really good, exciting, fun player. He's not going to hit you home runs, but he's going to get on base, he's going to hit a lot of singles. So Padres, though, I think they have the best, potential to do so with the rotation of what they added. Plus, of course, with the star power, Machado, Tatis, Cronenworth is having a really good season for the Padres. And their young rookie, Jackson Merrill, I think he's had a nice, solid season to start this year. So, yeah, I think Padres give the Dodgers the biggest threat if there's any team in the National League West.
All right, and then follow-up question about Ariz. Why were the Padres able to get him? Because I know this offseason the Padres traded away Soto because basically money-wise, contract-wise, and kind of just to get some return back. Why were they able to get Luis Ariz, who seems like he's a two-time All-Star here? So, I mean, how did he become available to, I don't want to say the lowly Padres, but just to a team that is not trying to spend a lot of money right now, it would seem at least?
Well, I don't know exactly why it happened, but I can tell you if there was any team to do it, it was the team who traded him, and that was the Miami Marlins. I mean, the Miami Marlins do not know how to run an organization. We are talking about so many players that this organization has traded away. And Miguel Cabrera started his career in Miami. Giancarlo Stanton was there at one point. Christian Yelich, Marcell Ozuna, just to name a few guys. And so the Marlins, they had one good season last year. And then you know what? Their season this year started out horribly. And they're like, you know what? Whatever. This team just traded for Luis Ariz 2 years ago. They traded away Pablo Lopez for Luis Ariz. And they've only had him. They only had him for 2 years. And they're already like, well, we suck. Let's just trade him. So I really don't know why they did it, unless they just were like, we're not going to get anything out of them. Let's just do it now and try to get some prospects to build back up because we think we're just that far away from winning. That's the only thing I can think of. The Marlins just needed to get some more prospects, and they were like, yeah, we're not going to re-sign Luis Ariz anyway.
Yeah, that would line up real well with at least their record. They have the second to worst record in Major League Baseball. They are tied with the Colorado Rockies in the amount of wins, 15 wins. And the only team in the MLB right now, through about 45-ish games, I'm rounding a couple games here and there for some teams, but through about 45, 50 games, the White Sox only have less amount of wins than the Marlins and the Rockies at 14. So, yeah, they booted early on it. But I do want to hear, how about your Cardinals? I know we got a lot of Oklahoma State fans who are big Cardinals fans. Of course, I think maybe now they're also Orioles fans because Jackson Holliday now plays in the Orioles organization. But at some point, they were big Matt Holliday fans. And how are the Cardinals doing this year?
Man, April started out really bad. I mean, the offense was barely scoring 3 runs a game, if that. Like, if that was their max. If they were scoring any runs, it was like 3 runs max. The offense has been coming around lately, though. That's a positive. They have won 7 of their last 10 games, I think. They just beat Baltimore tonight. It's a really nice win against the Baltimore team, who's, in my opinion, one of the better teams in the majors. I still do think there's a lot of question marks still around this team. specifically in the rotation. And people are probably saying, well, hasn't the offense been the problem? Yeah, the offense has been the problem. It's coming around now. But let's be honest, we don't have a number 5 spot in the rotation. This team went into the offseason knowing that there was question marks in the rotation all around. They fixed it with getting 3 guys, one of them being Sonny Gray, the other guy being Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson, who I think is really just putting a Band-Aid on your rotation and hoping nothing happens. Well, Steven Matz is out now. He's probably going to be out for the majority of the year, if not all of it. And you're putting in a guy who shouldn't be starting every 5th day in Matthew Liberatore. They need to fix the rotation. They need to find some stability in it, because if there's one more injury in this rotation, I don't know what else they're going to do. I really don't. And that's what gives me the biggest concern about this team. Because, yeah, the offense, we can all talk about how bad it's been for the majority of the season. But at the end of the day, this is a 6-month season. The offense will come around, and the pitching is what you're going to win or lose games by. And I think the pitching is still the biggest question mark today. So, yeah, I think they're in a winnable division. There's still 4+ months to be played. So I'm not saying the season's dead right now, but you got to have pitching. You know, at the end of the day, you got to have pitching, and you have to have Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado actually carrying your team, which they haven't done yet either. So a lot of question marks around the team. Not where I want this team to be at, but they're still in a winnable division, pretty weak for the majority of it. We'll see what happens. A lot of baseball to be played.
Gotcha. Well, then kind of ask you basically a follow-up here. I mean, right now it seems like the Cardinals have some room for improvement, could rebound a little bit on offense, could make some trades here. Is there another team out there besides maybe the Cardinals who's underachieving right now, who's just doing worse than they should be, and you see them doing a lot better in the division going forward?
That's a great question. I mean, the easiest answer to that is probably the Houston Astros. I mean, look at the Astros this year. This is a team who's dominated the American League the decade. I mean, the last, 8 years, they've just dominated this American League. They've been to World Series. They've won 2, I believe, now. And they're just constantly in the American League championship series. But they've been off to a slow start. I do think they get back, though. They've kind of turned it around lately. They've won 7 of their last 8 games. I think the Astros are a team who's been big time underperforming. I think they do bounce back and eventually at least come close to the top of the spot of the division, at least make the playoffs. So I'd say them, and there would be one more team who I would say is underperforming, and that would be the Toronto Blue Jays. I wasn't high coming in on them this season, but the Toronto Blue Jays should be better than what they are. There's too much talent on that team to be bottom of the barrel in the American League East. And that's where they are right now. They are number 5 in the division at 21-25, 10.5 games back from first. So yeah, Blue Jays and Astros would be my 2 other disappointing teams in the league right now.
All right. Well, let me flip it on its head here. Who's overachieving right now? Is it these Kansas City, or is it the Kansas City Royals basically?
Man, I came into the season thinking the Royals could be good. I didn't think they would be this good, and it's still early, so obviously a lot to be played. But man, the Royals look good. I mean, Bobby Witt Jr., very exciting baseball player right now. They just signed him to that huge contract in the offseason. Vinny Pasquantino, first baseman for the Royals. They really beefed up that rotation, and it wasn't with the biggest names. Like, it wasn't like they were going out there and getting a Max Scherzer or a Sonny Gray like the Cardinals did. They went out there and got some kind of low-key guys and built it up, like Seth Lugo. Seth Lugo's had a phenomenal start to the season for the Royals. So, yeah, I don't know how real it is, but it looks good right now. I still am a little skeptical on them, but they've been really good. They're also in a very winnable division. I think the American League Central is one of the weaker divisions in baseball, but it hasn't really shown that right now because the Cleveland Guardians currently sit at 31-17, and the Kansas City Royals sit at 30-19. Those are 3 of the top 4 records in all of baseball right now. So, yeah, pretty impressive to see what the Royals are doing.
Yeah, when I'm comparing the Royals to like the Yankees, who I know are just loaded and are basically running away with the whole AL, at least it seems, they are at 33 wins, and you're talking about the Royals, who I believe lost over 100 games last year, and this year they're at 30 wins already. I don't know what the pace was last year, and how they're going to do against that. But, man, it just seems like you said, the Royals may be overachieving a little bit, but they win every home game. They're 19-8 at home. They have the best home record in Major League Baseball. Kind of easily to say that, to be honest, which is odd. There's other teams that are very close to them in kind of percentage-wise. Yankees are 16-7, so they're right there. But yeah, it just seems like the Royals are just doing really, really good. Is there another team out there who maybe, and I'm not going to say is overachieving. I know Joel Penfield, friend of the podcast, would kill me on that. He's a big Royals fan, covers them as well. But is there another team that maybe is overachieving or just doing better than expectations here as well this season so far?
Man, I think it's right here in the National League Central, and that's the Brewers. I don't think the Brewers are this good. I came into the season very low on them. My prediction for the National League Central was Cardinals Cubs. I thought it'd be up to them to win the division. But the more I look at the Brewers, they started out April really well. The division, they came out there. The offense was great. Rotation was solid. But that's my biggest concern is their rotation. Freddie Peralta's their number one guy. Besides him, they don't really have a go-to guy as a number 2 and number 3. And their offense, I feel like, is just going to come back down to earth. My one positive about the Brewers is William Contreras. William Contreras has been incredible for them. He's an amazing hitter. He's going to keep that team going as long as he can, but it's all going to go back down the order and who's going to be able to step up when they need to if he's not hitting. And that's where I think the Brewers are going to struggle. So Brewers are a team who I think is overperforming right now. And I think they'll come back down to earth as if they haven't already. I mean, they just lost tonight to the Miami Marlins, 3-2 in extras. I mean, that's one of the worst losses. You're going to lose these kind of games throughout the season, but still, that's a bad loss for them. And I think they're kind of trending on the downward right now.
Yeah. When you're talking about Contreras, that name just, of course, rings a bell because about a year ago right now, you and I were hanging out in St. Louis, seeing Wilson Contreras, who's, I know, in the IL, playing as well here for the Cardinals. But it's just so odd to me that they've got basically both those guys. They're just, I mean, in the same division, not even in the same just kind of conference there. So that being said here, also want to ask you, is there a team where you go, hey, you know what, I'm really high on them, but maybe no one else is right now? They're a dark horse team I like a lot here to make a postseason run, do well. I know we're in the first, basically kind of third of the season. We're still in May, but as far as you can tell right now, is there a team you like a lot to go a little bit deeper than everyone else sees right now too?
Great question, as always. I mean, just looking at the standings, and I don't know if I can consider, I can't call them a dark horse right now, but there's two teams that I'm really high on at the moment. One of them, it shouldn't come to a surprise to people. If you know baseball, you should see how dominant this team is, but I don't think they're being talked about enough, and that's the Philadelphia Phillies. Look at the Phillies right now. They're 20 games above 500. They're 5 games ahead of the Atlanta Braves. And the Atlanta Braves were projected by a lot of websites, by the odds makers in Vegas, to run away with this division and win it with no ounce of energy from the Phillies. Now, look, again, this is May 20th. A lot of things can happen in the next 4 months. But what the Phillies are doing right now is pretty damn amazing. I personally think they are better than the Braves, and where they're at right now doesn't surprise me. So I think the Phillies, I really think if it came down to them and the Dodgers for a series, I think the Phillies can give the Dodgers troubles in the playoffs. So the Phillies, one of my favorite teams that, in my opinion, I'm still not hearing a lot of people talk about, which I think is absurd. And then the other team that I think would be a little bit under the radar is the Seattle Mariners. I also came in pretty high on them this season. They have really good starting pitching. My biggest concern is their offense, but I do think the pitching is there. And if they can make maybe a couple additions at the trade deadline to boost that lineup, and plus their best hitter hasn't even really got going yet, and that's Julio Rodriguez, one of the younger players in all of baseball, who is coming off an incredible season. I think with him hitting at his potential and a couple additions to the offense, I think that Seattle Mariners could be a good team to make a run in the postseason under the radar.
Yeah, I mean, the Mariners leading the division currently is quite incredible. I know they've got Julio Rodriguez. He's a huge star. He appears in like every T-Mobile commercial, I want to say, or most of them. And I know it's kind of T-Mobile Park there in Seattle as well, no longer Safeco. But, there's a lot of great guys right now a Major League Baseball are kind of up and coming. I'm gotta be honest, I'm getting tired of the Aaron Judge love because it just seems just tired and it's long in the tooth. And okay, he's incredible. He can hit 60 plus home runs in a season. Is he gonna break the Roger Maris home run record for the Yankees? And then it's like, okay, cool. But that's just here and done. It's whatever. Or is there another kind of star here that's building up in the MLB? I know Tatis is on the cover of MLB The Show not too long ago. I know Rodriguez just talked about him a little bit. Is there another guy here where, hey, you know what? We should be looking at him here as maybe the next guy in MLB to really make some noise.
Yeah, I mentioned him at the beginning when we were talking about the Cincinnati Reds. Elly De La Cruz. If you haven't had a chance to watch this guy, make sure you do. Just to give you a crazy stat already. I mean, if people know about this, I don't know how you're not already watching baseball with Elly De La Cruz out there, but he has 30 stolen bases on the season. 30 stolen bases. It's not even June yet. So this guy's like on pace. I don't know the exact pace, but like somewhere north of 90 stolen bases if he were to stay healthy for the rest of the season. And they're already saying like how he could potentially break like some record of stolen bases in a single season. I'd love to see it, but this guy can hit. He is a little inconsistent at times. He kind of goes in streaks, but when he's hitting, he is very exciting. When he gets on base, he's almost guaranteed to steal. So Elly De La Cruz is one of my favorite up and coming young superstars. And I think it's really exciting for baseball to see a guy like this.
All right. Well, is there also a guy here that's on the mound that you could see as the next up and coming guy? I think I'm teeing you up for him. We were talking about him a little bit in person here on Friday, but if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But tell me here, who's the guy?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that was going to be my next. I was going to say, I almost forgot to mention him because he deserves mention. And that is Paul Skeens, the pitcher for the Pittsburgh Pirates. I mean, I've watched a lot of pitchers in baseball, and usually, you're like, yeah, that guy's really, really good. And you see the stuff on his pitches, you see the velocity, blah, blah, blah. You get all cute into that. It is what it is. But man, Paul Skeens, just 2 starts in, his last start was the most like incredible start I've seen in a while. Just the movement on his pitches. His worst pitch is his like 102 mile an hour fastball. I mean, he throws like a 95, 96 mile an hour splitter. When you see that thing coming at you and then it just moves the way it does, it's crazy. So I really hope this guy can stay healthy because he is legit. He is legit the hype that people are saying he is. And if the Pirates don't lock him up right now, they're going to be really wishing they did when he's back in free agency in 6 seasons. But man, Paul Skeens, really exciting baseball player. He makes me, it's only been 2 starts, and he already makes me want to turn on my TV the next time he pitches. He had 6 no-hit innings in his last start at Wrigley. He got taken out of the game because he was at 100 pitches. But yeah, Paul Skeens, incredible pitcher. You got to watch him next time he's out there.
Yeah, is there anything I'm missing, though? His ESPN stats are not necessarily great. His ERA at home is a 6.75. Am I reading this correctly, or am I missing something completely?
Don't look too much into that. So that first game out there, he actually went like 4 1/3. They had him on a pitch limit. So he had like a couple walks in that inning before they took him out, and they brought in a reliever who allowed all of his runs. So those runs were earned by him. So it may look worse than what it really says. So like, yeah, after his first game, he had like a 6-point-something ERA, but he really didn't give up all those runs. Yes, he did in terms of like the earned runs and how that gets allowed, but he really wasn't that bad in his first start as maybe it looks like.
Gotcha. Yeah, looks like he had that start on May 17th there, so I'm assuming he's not playing again or not pitching again here tomorrow on the 21st. I'm always just kind of just really curious here how everyone's judging pitching here going forward, because like you said, don't look at the ERA. Guys' ERA can be super high. Is there really the stat that I should know going forward in MLB to follow a pitcher? Like, or is there a favorite stat you have of, hey, this guy's really good, or versus not? Because it used to be, I mean, when I was in high school and I was playing high school baseball and just really around it, it was ERA or bust. I mean, that was the stat to know. If a guy was pitching under 2, it was like, oh, he's incredible. He's Cy Young type of guy. But this is what I'm talking about. Kershaw is winning the Cy Young. And I know Kershaw just has an incredible career, keeps going. So even after I was out of high school, Kershaw's been killing it with the ERA. But what's kind of the stat here, MLB-wise, to know if a pitcher's doing good or bad? Or is it really just kind of you got to look at a bunch of different ones?
Yeah, I mean, there's a advanced metric that a lot of gurus in baseball like to look at, and that's xERA. So that's like expected ERA. It kind of tells you what, based off all the metrics like laid out, not to get super deep into it, but xERA kind of tells you what it could be and should be. So it tells you really if you're being lucky or not in xERA. And then the other one is FIP. FIP is another big metric that people like to look at. Fielder independent is what that is in the long version of it. That was just abbreviated FIP, but FIP is a good way to measure how a pitcher really is this season too. So if you're looking at it right now, like I'm looking at the top 3 guys who have the best FIP in baseball right now, and that would be Tariq Skubal from the Detroit Tigers, who's been amazing. Guy's been absolutely incredible. His metrics match up to that. Shota Imanaga, forgot to mention him. Great starting pitcher for the Cubs from Japan. He's been phenomenal this season. He's got the second best FIP in all of baseball. Tanner Houck, Dylan Cease right behind him. So, yeah, I think that's a good metric to measure these pitchers and really where they stand. Even if their ERA doesn't look great, I think the FIP kind of tells you what their real numbers are too.
Gotcha. Well, yeah, that being said, that's really good to know. And also, I will say there is a real big rumor here that Skene's next start will be on Thursday. Just so while you're talking there, I just want to look it up here for the listener, viewer. If you're not watching this on YouTube, what are you doing? Because you're missing all this great content of just looking each other in the face and staring so hardcore. But you're also missing basically all the graphics that we put up here during the podcast of, okay, yeah, the Padres and Bogarts, he had to leave the game early with an injury. But Paul Skenes is going to start on Thursday. So looks like for the Pirates. Which should be great. Again, can't wait to see Skenes basically pitch, and his TikTok girlfriend, I believe, as well too. She'll probably be there, and I can't wait for the MLB to put all that over Instagram, or is Instagram rebranding too to be Z or something? I don't know what's going on. But Alexi, with that, before I make some other jokes here, to get more delirious, any other final thoughts here about the MLB season going on so far before we wrap this one up?
Not too much. I mean, I think it's just an exciting time. If you like baseball, it's a good time to watch. I mean, you can really watch a lot of these young guys. Hopefully we don't see as many injuries continue. There's been a lot of pitching injuries this season. So hoping that doesn't happen more on, but you can't really control that. So it is what it is. But yeah, it's a fun season ahead. A lot of young, exciting players in the game right now, and it's only getting better. So looking forward to the final 4 months of the season. I can't believe we're almost 2 months into the season already.
Yeah, kind of crazy when you think about it that way too. And then there are a bunch of Oklahoma State players here in the minor leagues. You've got 7 currently, I think actually 8, currently in AAA. You've got more than that in AA and even more than that in single A as well. You've got former Oklahoma State players that are household names as far as it goes to Rock Riggio, currently playing in high A ball. Just was on the team last year as far as Roman Polansker. And then you, of course, have also Donnie Walton, who was playing a little bit for the Giants and the Mariners. Now he's back in AAA ball for a little bit here, still with the Giants, their minor league system as well, too. So give all the Oklahoma State fans here kind of a big heads up. Jonathan Hazley, as he tries to come back up to the majors, kind of from injury and dealing with some lows here in his career. He's with the Orioles right now and their minor leagues team in Norfolk. So see how everyone does. Can't wait to see more Oklahoma State guys in the majors, and we'll see if CES, I think is what it should abbreviate to, but Christian Encarnacion Strand can be the light here for all Oklahoma State fans, and see a bunch of those Reds jerseys all around Cecil O'Bright Field here in Stillwater as they try to host a regional, maybe a super regional, see what we do in baseball too. We'll cover that kind of as all that shakes out here a little more. And shout out to Oklahoma State baseball sweeping Houston this past weekend here in kind of a weird whole deal. Praying for everyone, hoping everyone's all right in Houston when they deal with those storms. But at the same point, Oklahoma State did sweep Houston, and Now looks like Big 12 tournament, Big 12 championship, and a lot of Big 12 kind of hot dogs. If you're not tuned into the Big 12 feed as far as Big 12 ballpark food, I really hate personally the Big 12 baseball championship is no longer in a AAA ballpark in Oklahoma City. One, of course, biased. You and I can go to it, hang out, watch Oklahoma State play some baseball. But of course, too, it just looks so weird when it's in a Major League Baseball stadium. And it's Big 12 baseball at the end of the day. Should it be packed? Yes. But is it going to be 40,000 people? No, it's just not. So why not put it in a 20,000 seat stadium and see what you got? You know, if you end up packing it out, wow, that's a big problem to have. And then all of a sudden you move it. But I'm sure TV and all other money reasons and stuff like that happens for a reason. So, Alexi, with that being said, where can everyone find you, get more info, learn more some baseball stuff, and also follow your daily picks here for the MLB games?
Yep, I like to post daily picks on Twitter, X, whatever. That's at Deep Pockets Bet. You can find me on Twitter. You'll see a green picture with the name Deep Pockets Bet on it. I like to post a lot of content on sports, but mostly just sports picks and baseball right now. We've got baseball picks that usually are thrown out there daily.
Awesome, man. Well, with that being said, thanks so much for joining. If you're not already, subscribe to the YouTube channel at the CGA Tour. Just past 200 subscribers here, so trying to build that up a little bit. And if you're listening this far in the podcast, you're not following on Instagram, X, Snapchat, YouTube, TikTok, everywhere you can listen to podcasts, please do so. Thanks again, and we'll catch you guys soon.